Hey, guys, welcome back to Out of Left Field. Graham and Chris back here once again with you. Finally letting all the dust from the baseball season settle, and we are back now to start getting into the enjoyment of the offseason. Free agency is in full swing. A lot of big names have either opted in, have opted out, have had their options declined by their teams. So we will get into all of that, and we're going to start breaking down a couple of teams every week kind of on what we think that they need to contend coming into next season. And granted, pitching has been on the tip of our tongues for months on this show, but we're going to try and go a little bit deeper than that. And also at the tail end, we will have Sonoma Stompers outfielder Stacy Piagno joining us as we continue our series on women in baseball. So let's put the ball in play. Chris, what is going on, my friend?
Oh, man, not a whole lot. You know, it's actually starting to get cooler here in Arizona, and it's nice, man. I'm having a good week, sort of.
Well, hey, we'll take it.
I think the biggest thing that's going on right now is that teams are really starting to look at what they need to do better than they did last year. And I think that what we're going to do, or what we need to do, is we need to go team by team, and we'll start in the East and head west, and we'll go team by team over the next few weeks, and we'll just talk about what these teams need and what they need to do to really be able to compete next year.
Yeah,
you and I discussed it a little bit off air. So we'll go, first and worst in each division? And
I think we'll go first and worst and kind of work our way kind of into the middle. And we've got some big names that are coming in as free agents. I mean, you know, as we go through both leagues, A.J. Prusensky, veteran catcher with the Braves. But really kind of the first one you get to, if we go alphabetically, is going to be Matt Leaders of the Orioles. And there's been some pretty big talk that I've heard that the Braves might be looking at him, which we had talked about, and I had mentioned to you a little while back, that I think that he would be a good piece to bring back in. I know there's been talk of having Brian McCann come back. I think Leaders is still a young catcher. It's a piece the Braves could use if they can shore up that pitching staff as they're trying to, you know, make steps to get back into prominence, that you can have a veteran guy behind the plate. We know how important they are. You know, Nolan Reimold, been good kind of going down. The Red Sox are Junichi Tozawa. Coach Uehara also goes into free agency. And then we get to the World Series winners, the Cubbies. And first name that I think everyone thinks of is going to be Aroldis Chapman. Yankees,
right,
from reports, have already reached out to his representatives. We know that when he left New York in the middle of the season, that he talked about wanting to go back there right away. ESPN's Pedro Gomez talked to him, after they had won, and he said, well, you know, they opened their arms to me. I wouldn't mind staying, but we get a few. You have I believe Jake Arrieta as well, Chris Coughlin, David Ross, who we know obviously is going to go ahead and step away from the game. The funniest one to me is that I heard the Boston Red Sox exercise their option on David Ortiz. So, hey, changes his mind, you still got him. So, yeah, man, I mean, a bunch of stuff going around. About 139 players are becoming free agents across the board. So, you know, a lot of guys, a lot of big names, a lot of names that not so much. And some kind of jump out at you. Some teams losing more than others. The Dodgers have a lot of guys. The Mets. Obviously, the Mets, Yoenis Cespedes opted out of about $47 million on another option this year. So, we're going to see a shakeup like we do every offseason, and we'll see kind of who the winners are and the losers and who puts themselves in a good position to at least to begin the season.
Yeah, I think that that one of the big things we're going to see, especially from the Cubbies, is the Cubbies are going to go after those guys that won them that championship, and it's going to be hard for them to turn their backs on those guys, especially guys like Jake Arrieta. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jake Arrieta go ahead and get re-signed at whatever Jake Arrieta really wants. He may not have had a flagship year last year, but he was still one of the top pitchers in the National League.
when you take a no-hitter into the sixth inning in the World Series in your first game, that's going to stand out, that at least when the pressure comes up, that you can respond. I want to ask you this real quick as I was looking through the names, and I know we're going to go into in a couple of weeks we'll hit the West Coast, but I just wanted to check, did you have a preference on the Giants re-signing Santiago Casilla or Jake Peavy or Sergio Romo? I just wanted to kind of get your take as a Giants fan on possibly them, bringing those guys back.
Yeah. So if the Giants re-sign Santiago Casilla,
keep a reminder.
They're going to be
family show. This is a family show, Chris. Just a reminder, this is a family show. So please, let's keep it PG.
There are going to be hundreds of thousands of people in this country calling for the general manager's head, and possibly Brian Sabian's head as well. As far as Jake Peavy needs to retire. He's a great kid. He's a great pitcher, and I like him. He's a great person. He's a great team motivator. He's just not a great pitcher anymore. Time for him to go. It's time for him to step back from the game. Maybe find a new role in the game. I'm sure he could be a great pitching coach at the lower levels in minor leagues and whatnot. Maybe work his way back into the league that way. As far as Sergio Romo, I'd like to see Sergio Romo come back. Not as a closer, but as a setup guy or as a short reliever. Some guy that comes in and does half an inning of work. But I'd like to see him come back because he's a solid pitcher. And I think he kind of proved that there towards the very end of the season. He got dinged up a little bit, but he made fewer mistakes than good pitches. And I think there's still something there. But thank you for baiting me. I appreciate that.
No, not a problem. So as we kind of roll into this, and we'll get into, more guys as we go in, we've heard rumors about the Blue Jays extending Jose Bautista qualifying offer. Of course, they're trying to lock up Edwin Encarnacion. One person they did let go was R.A. Dickey, and he has signed a one-year deal with the Braves. So obviously a guy up there in age, but Braves are looking for some veteran presence and just something to try and make that pitching staff seem legitimate. Carlos Ruiz, who came over to the Dodgers, has been traded to the Mariners for Vidal Nuno, so a catcher for a starting pitcher. You got to wonder, how does that make A.J. Ellis feel, though? They dumped him off to the Phillies at the tail end of the year to bring over Ruiz, and then as soon as the season's over, Ruiz gets traded off. So, for someone that really loved that organization, really cared about Clayton Kershaw, he was kind of the, A.J. Ellis and Kershaw were kind of the Dodgers version of John Lester and David Ross.
Right.
Evan Gattis gets his option picked up. Jason Greeley, who was traded from Pittsburgh to Toronto, gets his option picked up. And a couple other things. Jay Bruce had his option picked up. Here's one that surprised me, and this kind of takes us into our first team. The Red Sox optioned or picked up the option of Clay Buchholz. And obviously we started off the show when we began talking about what in the world is going on with guys like David Price. We had Dallas Keuchel, Verlander for a while, and he really tightened up and was looked at as a possible MVP or a Cy Young candidate at the end of the year. But Clay Buchholz never could seem to find it. He got demoted to the bullpen. He got picked back up because of injury issues. Dude, I mean, I understand that he's been around that organization for a while, but I don't know if I quite understand the reason behind grabbing him, unless you just didn't think that there was much better out there right now, or how much. I don't know how much they're getting him for either.
Yeah, I can't understand this move by Boston. I mean, there are, what have we looked at? 20, maybe not 20, but there are at least 10 good starting pitchers who are free agents this year, right? Not the least of which is a guy named R.A. Dickey, who, while he's not the best probably of the available starting pitchers, he's a darn good one. And he went to Atlanta, and I can't help but think that instead of picking up Buchholz's option, that maybe that should have been somewhere that Boston was looking at a pitcher in their own division who knows the division, who is a decent starting pitcher, as opposed to a guy like Buchholz who just didn't have a good season and hasn't been doing well in recent years. I think that they had to pick him up. His option can't be for much money, right?
I'm looking that up right now. Give me just a second. As I pull up what his contract numbers are. Let's see. His option, his option is a 13.5 hit. So, and his buyout was only $500K. So I'm a little bit surprised.
That's too much.
A little bit surprised.
That's too much, in my opinion, to pay for Clay Buchholz.
And I agree. I mean, we look at where he was. This will be his age 32 year coming up. He went 8-10, and I mean, he's had a couple of good years, but overall he's 81-61. So I mean, nothing fantastic. 8-10 last year, had a 4.78 ERA, which was his third highest ERA in his career. And that was in 37 games. So one of the highest he's had in games where he's going 20 or beyond as a full-time starter. He went 139 innings, gave up 80 runs. 74 of those runs were earned, and 21 came in the way of the long ball. The one you've got to worry about, and and I get he may not be a strikeout pitcher, but he got hit pretty hard. He walked 55 and struck out 93, so it's less than a 1-2 strikeout ratio. It really makes me, we saw a Cy Young year with him a few years back, but he hasn't really shown that. I mean, let's look at since 2013 when he went 12-1 in 16 games. Okay, I believe he was a Cy Young candidate in 2010, but in 2014, 2015, and 2016, he is 8-11, 7-7, and 8-10 respectively. With
right, and it's not like he's not starting games.
Exactly.
He started 28, 18, and 21 games respectively those seasons.
Exactly.
So I
mean, I don't see why. I get there are more pitchers out there, and you want to be able to grab onto a guy that knows your organization, that has been in there long enough and knows what you're about. But when you're getting a guy, and I've used this term a lot, who becomes kind of a liability, it got to a point where, all right, man, when we put you out there, you're hoping for maybe 3 or 4 innings if you're lucky, and then aside from that, then it kind of just it just went out the way. He pitched in the ALDS, took a loss with a 4.5 ERA, only pitched 4 innings. He gave up 6 hits and 2 earned runs, walked 1 and struck out 4. So we know there are a lot of pieces that the Red Sox need to address. Let's go ahead and get into that as we go start at the top. Obviously, the heartbeat of the team is gone. David Ortiz hangs him up. Okay, he's right. If he comes back, he becomes the Brett Favre of Major League Baseball. But
he has a team to play for because Boston did pick his option up.
Exactly, yes. And we've seen, like I said, Koji Uehara, Tazawa, Aaron Hill, a couple of free agents there. So the question is, they have a couple of guys in the bullpen that are kind of looking on the way out. As far as picking up a closer, they still have Craig Kimbrell, who, albeit definitely not his best year this year, is still going to be considered one of the best closers in the game of baseball. So where do we look at what they need, what pieces that the Red Sox need to look at in a way to try and go ahead and put themselves in position to once again win the division, but this time get some separation. Because that was the hard part, is they couldn't get separation. It was so clumped together. How do they distance themselves from the Blue Jays and the Orioles, who we're going to get to next week, Chris?
Well, I think that's a pretty simple answer. Pitching, and more pitching. This is a team that needs to very seriously consider when the White Sox say that they're willing to entertain offers on Chris Sale and on Quintana. If they can pick up one of those two pitchers, they will be in a better position to make some separation. I don't think that it is terribly imperative that they pick up anything in the way of a bat to replace Ortiz, because Ortiz was more to that team than a bat. So picking up a bat to replace him isn't really going to do much on that front. Not saying that they don't need a bat, just saying that trying to replace Ortiz's hitting numbers isn't going to replace the kind of player, the kind of leader that Ortiz was.
It doesn't, but I will say I'm glad that Bradley and Betts were there. I'm glad that Pedroia is still there, because you have a guy who's won a couple of World Series. You kind of have a trickle-down of leadership. Pedroia kind of takes the head as the veteran who's been there for a while, and once he goes to leave, Bradley and Betts are established. Hanley Ramirez is there, but he's older in his career. We'll see if Pablo Sandoval creeps back up into full-time play.
I'd like to see Pablo Sandoval play.
He's lost a lot of weight from what I've seen. I mean, he looks really trimmed down. Like I think he realizes that if he doesn't go ahead and get a hold of this, that he took that big paycheck in Boston, and they're not going to just let him play because he's getting paid a lot of money.
Right, and don't forget that that's the same thing he did in San Francisco. He took a huge paycheck in San Francisco, and then he got really fat, and then coming in after the 2010 World Series,
he's athletically fluffy. Okay, he was athletically fluffy.
Hey, I'm fat.
Well, I wasn't talking about you. You're talking about Pablo Sandoval.
Coming in after the 2010 World Series win, he lost a ton of weight.
Right.
But his play suffered for it. And I don't know if I'm not going to say his play suffered because he lost weight, but his swing definitely did. I think he put so much energy into losing the weight over the off season that he didn't stop to think that maybe it was gonna mess with how he swings the bat or how he plays his position. As he started putting that weight back on, he played better, and there's no other way to put it. I hate to say it, but you look at him in 2012 when he was a little bit heavier and he's a better ball player. I think that Pablo Sandoval is the kind of guy that if he lost half the weight that he lost in 2011, he could come in. I don't know if he could be an everyday third baseman. I don't know that Boston needs him as an everyday third baseman, but he could probably be the kind of guy who steps into that designated hitter role for David Ortiz.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Is do you think that with Brock Holt being maybe a little bit more nimble down on the hot corner, that you go ahead and hold on to Pablo because of his bat?
Yeah, I think you slide him into that designated hitter role. I don't think you let him hit 4, but maybe 5. And he's not as disciplined of a hitter as a lot of guys that you see at designated hitter.
Right.
But he is effective and his on-base percentage is high. He does draw a lot of walks. And he takes at bats deep, and that's one thing that he's really good at. I think that with his ability to get on base, with his ability to hit the long ball, with his ability to hit the ball into gaps and into the corners, I think that while he's not a triple threat, he's definitely a threat to double in any given at bat.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what you need from a designated hitter, somebody who they have to throw around they have to pitch around because he can take them deep, and then when they pitch around, somebody who can go after pitches and hit them for extra base hit.
And one of the beauties is, they are still reaping the benefits of Theo Epstein's overhaul, really, of that farm system. Granted, he's been gone for a couple of years, but a lot of those kids that he picked up or the draft picks that he acquired over time are still developing. One of those I saw this past week in the Arizona Fall Stars game, and it was Michael Kopech, and he's one of the advanced starters up in Salem for the Red Sox. Dude's hitting triple digits, really looks good. Obviously has a long way to go from single A up to the bigs, but a slider with a lot of movement. He really could command both sides of the plate. Had a lot of all of his off-speed stuff moved. It's one of those things where he had gas, but he knew how to be able to control it to go ahead and work to his advantage. And it could be someone that we see up, and I think you'll see an invite up to camp this year. I'd be surprised if he doesn't get a chance to at least get some time in with the pitching staff, with the pitching coach, and kind of see where they can go ahead and and advance him. And of course, Andrew Benintendi he came up and has been up in the bigs for pretty much the last the latter part of the season. So really, they need to figure out pitching, but to me, I still think more of the pitching that they need to worry about comes in the bullpen. David Price has got to be better. We know that, but he can be better. We've seen what he can be, and for whatever reason, last year wasn't one of those years, and even then he still was able to go all the way to the playoffs. But right. Stephen Wright with that knuckleball, you've got to believe that if he can keep commanding it like he was and be as good as he was going the next year and on a consistent basis, they have a great piece there with a pitcher every 5 days who throws something that's so hard to hit because guys see it so rarely. Buck Holtz goes ahead and rounds out the bottom half, and then potentially you have a new number one or a solid number two, and the man who we picked to be the American League Cy Young winner, Rick Porcello. So you've got a decent 3, maybe 4 with Buck Holtz. So you have Matt Lato still in free agency. Possibly if they pick him up, see if they can put him in the back end of a bullpen or the back end of the rotation. But to me, it's a matter of what can you find when it comes to pitching. We talked about that. Guys like Trevor Cahill are going to be out there. The one that surprised me, Kenley Jansen, is a free agent. Although I am fairly sure the Dodgers are going to pick that one up very, very quick and offer him whatever it is that he needs.
Now, I have a question for you, though.
Okay.
Do they look at Uehara?
You've got to at least they're not going to just dump it without making a look at making him an offer if it's reasonable. Granted, he's 41. He's going into his age 42 season. And his ERA wasn't great, about a point higher than where he has been. So the question that Dave Dombrowski has to figure out, who is the Red Sox GM, is, was last year a flash in the pan of pain, or did he find the cliff and just kept on walking and now it's done? I mean, he's been over here playing in the States for about 8 years. Okay, he came over at his age 34 year in 2009. But a 3.45 ERA, the highest ERA that he had in 4 years. I mean, he had been, sub 2 in 12 and 13, and even at 14 and 15 was at 2.5 or below. So it was just one of those years where, he ended up losing 3 games, which is, for a guy who's in the bullpen and comes into those situations, sometimes it's going to happen. But what gets me is that, 8 homers, 11 walks, 63 strikeouts. So he still seems to be commanding it pretty well. Hit 2 batters, give up 34 hits, 18 earned runs. So it's still there, but you got to find it. You got to find it in a way where he's not going to cost you an arm and a leg for that at that age. You just can't do that.
Right.
And he made $9 million this year.
And the thing is that you can see that he's a guy that strikes people out. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He 63 strikeouts in 47 innings is a lot of strikeouts.
Right.
Talking about a guy in 2013 who struck out 101 hitters in 74 1/3 innings pitched. That's getting guys to swing bad. So
Right.
I think that they have to at least look before they just let him walk. But I don't think that he's the answer necessarily in the closer role.
Well, certainly not in the closer role because you still have Craig Kimbrell. I mean, Kimbrell's going to be your closer. There's no way that they're going to move Kimbrell to being a setup guy. I mean, he is going to be the ninth inning guy, ball in his hand. You know, and we saw based on his numbers that's when he performs best at that ninth inning pressure. When he came in where it wasn't a safe situation, he got blown up. Where I think the Red Sox could do well is grabbing Trevor Cahill, who the Cubs are choosing not to re-sign.
I think that I don't even think that Uehara probably needs to be in the setup role anymore. I'd like to see Uehara as either a specialist or a short reliever, guy who comes in and works at seventh, or the sixth and seventh, gets 5, maybe 6 outs, and sets up for the setup guy.
I disagree because to me, I don't think that you're going to take a guy who's going to be 42 and use him in a 2-inning stint. I think he'd be fine in 3 outs or fewer. Maybe you can use him in the 7th. Trevor Cahill, a guy who the Cubbies picked up. ERA has been decent the last couple of years, 2.12 and 2.74 respectively. Picked up a ring with the Cubbies this year in 50 games. Pitched 65 innings. Of course, in relief, he's transitioned from a starter, which I think works well. He's 29, right about that, 29, 30. So still got still a young arm. Give up 7 dingers, 20 earned runs with 49 hits. So it's like a lot, but still, when you're working in relief, walk 35, struck out 66. So it's one of those where he certainly is more of a contact pitcher, and that could be good. It could be bad because Boston can be a hitter-friendly park if you're a lefty with pesky pole, or it can make hitters get ticked off because you had a home run and ends up getting smacked off that big metal monster. So
right.
I don't think Cahill would be the worst option that they could pick up, but it's a matter of heck, you mentioned Jake Peavy. What if I highly doubt that Peavy would even consider coming back as anywhere as a reliever, but he does have history in Boston. He won a ring in Boston, so
I think Jake Peavy at this point is looking for a place where he can get a starter job or looking to retire. I don't think he's going to go sit in anybody's.
Much closer to the retire one.
Yeah, I don't think he's willing to go sit in anybody's bullpen except possibly the Giants, who've been really, really good to him.
Yeah. So let me ask you this,
and the history that he has with Boch as well,
right,
from the Padres.
So let me ask you this then, because we talked about guys who could fit in, and we have a guy here who was closer for a while, got bumped from that role a couple of years ago. But what about Drew Storen? He got bounced around from the Nationals, ended up going to Toronto, then Seattle, but had himself overall a 4-3 year. Not horrific, not fantastic. Ended up being a 5.23 ERA. Pitched much better in Seattle than he did north of the border. He was 1-3 in Toronto and 3-0 in Seattle. But do you think that Drew Storen might be a guy? He's 29 years old. Maybe you could put him once again, another guy who is comfortable with pressure. You can put him in the eighth inning to make room for Kimbrell. Or do you think he still is going to want to go ahead and hold out for a closing job?
I think that I don't know that I would go after Storen because, you say something like he pitched better in Seattle than he did in Toronto. That means he didn't do well against AL East batters. And to bring him into an AL East team or bring him down from Toronto into Boston, it's just one AL East team to another. I think he's going to continue to struggle against the hitters in the American League East. And then you're possibly going to put him up against, if they get re-signed, you're going to possibly put them up against guys like Joey Bats and Edwin Encarnacion, who are probably just going to light them up.
Okay. And I think that makes sense. You know, it was one of those things where the hard thing really for Drew Storen, I think, is going to be that, you know, he really had something, had something good in Washington, and
yeah,
I mean, it really got. I mean, they really did not treat him, didn't treat him that well at all.
No, they didn't, and he was pitching really well for them.
Right.
You know, he's 3-0 for them. He had a 3.44 ERA, and he was striking guys out. I mean, he struck out 16 guys in 18 innings, which isn't monster numbers, but from a guy who only works, you know, thirds of an inning at a time, it's not bad. You know, he pitched in 19 games, pitched 18 in the third, and I think that it's kind of indicative of the ownership in Seattle, and obviously as we move into the West Coast, as these shows proceed, we'll talk about the ownership in Seattle. But I think it's indicative of that ownership to take a guy who's just a quiet sort of workhorse guy who's going to get the job done for you and treat him like crap and then get rid of him. It's something that they've done quite a bit. It's something that if they weren't so good at taking big-name guys and getting rid of them, then I think it would be their MO. But we're talking about a team that got rid of guys like Alex Rodriguez and Randy Johnson, and so
right.
The big name guys are their MO. But if they weren't, I think it would be those workhorse guys who they treat poorly and then trade.
Okay. Like I said, I think that Storen is clearly he's gonna find a place.
Yeah, obviously.
There's no question that he'll find somewhere to go. I'm kind of with you there. I'm not sure if if Boston is going to be that place.
And to be fair to him, that 6.21 ERA that he had in Toronto is the worst he's ever done. I mean, other than that, and even his 5.23 that he finished the total season with between Toronto and Seattle is the worst ERA he's ever had. Last year he's a 3.44. Before that, 2013 was a 4.52. But prior to that, he's sub-4 every year, and most years he's sub-2. So I can see him being a good fit somewhere. I just don't know that it's in Boston.
And like I said, I think that very well could be the case. So let's move
Here's
on
my
to
question.
Okay, what you got?
Well, I think I was going to the same place you were. What can the Tampa Bay Rays do to compete?
Destroy Tropicana Field and start over?
Move?
I mean, I say that tongue in cheek, but my gosh, the Rays get so little support from local fans. Chris Archer even came out saying, "Hey, we got to spend more money to compete." Winter meetings are or at least postseason meetings are wrapping up. They're getting ready for winter meetings here in a month or so. But it's one of those things where I'm already hearing rumors that another pitcher is probably going to go from the starting rotation, which means either Odorizzi, maybe, God forbid, maybe it ends up being Archer, or we also have, I'm drawing a blank on his name now, Matt Moore just left, and gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the Drew Smiley is the last pitcher.
Right.
So, a lot of pieces there that really, they needed a lot of work. Obviously, a guy that you were a big fan of, and Nat Duffy, is now going to be probably at shortstop for them because Evan Longoria is still at third. But you got to know that Longoria's getting up there.
In my opinion, it's a misuse of Matt Duffy. He's a fantastic hot corner guy, but between the two, I would definitely think that Matt Duffy's going to handle shortstop better than Evan Longoria, who is got to be thinking retirement sometime soon.
I don't know if it's going to be, soon. I mean, he's been around. He's 31, so still has some playing time, but he's been going for a while.
And maybe that's the same. Maybe that's the same sort of short-sightedness that made us think that he was doing poorly this year, because he didn't. I mean, Evan Longoria still played baseball like Evan Longoria. He did well. He hit well. It's just that the Rays are doing so poorly around him that it's hard to see Evan Longoria is doing well. But the guy hit over 300. The guy he hit 30 home runs?
I need to see. Let me see what was his what did his stats end up at this year. This year, had 36. This year, 41 doubles. Let's see, ended up hitting 273 and 840 OPS. I mean, he's still swinging the bat, fairly well, but he just does not have much around him. I mean, it's going to take a while for them to to really turn things around. Kiermaier in center field. You have Logan Forsythe, who's a pretty prominent second baseman, kind of coming into his own, I think. But I mean, they need some work, man. I mean, they have a lot of people, going around there that they're placeholders right now. So
right.
we could go over a ton of things.
So here's what I see from Tampa Bay. And here's what I see that Tampa Bay needs. They really need three major things. First, they need to deepen their bullpen, both their bullpen and their starting rotation. Losing Matt Moore at the trade deadline, while they got back a fantastic young kid who's going to be great for them, it weakened them pitching-wise. They also need a catcher. I think catcher is going to be an important pickup for them.
And Wieters may not be a bad guy for them to go after because he's staying in the same division. She's comfortable in the AL East. He's come south. That may not be a bad spot for him to go. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them make an aggressive move after Matt Wieters if they can afford him.
Right. And I think the third piece that they need is a strong defensive first baseman with a bat. They've had a couple of good defensive first basemen. Neither of them can hit. Logan Morrison, James Loney, both of them are good defensive guys. But
the problem with that equation is good defensive first baseman with bats don't see the light of free agency. I mean, teams are going to pay them a lot of money to stay for as long as possible. Usually will pay them too much money, a la Albert Pujols. But, I mean, it's one of those things they're really going to have to use their farm system and cultivate young talent because they have decent pieces, but they don't have pieces that are going to draw a high return. But the pieces they have also aren't going to draw, as we saw this year, aren't going to do enough for them, to make them competitive. It's just not going to happen. And they're in right now a division where, three teams made it into the postseason. So, yeah, it's going to be tough for them. And I don't know. I really don't know. There is no easy answer. It's going to take a while for them to finally get to where they need to be. I mean, we saw Joe Madden there, and he didn't have much to work with, but he at least made things happen. And they had David Price. He was young. He was up and coming, again, out of the farm system. And you lose Joe Madden. You lose, your GM leaves. And I'm really not seeing the leadership there right now that's going to take them to the next level they need to be. I think they may be in kind of a rebuilding flux for a while to come.
Right. And it's going to be hard because the problem that I see with the Rays is not just on the field. I think that it starts at the very top, and it really just has to go down from there. The ownership's not spending the money they need to spend. The GM's not making the moves they need to make. There's coaching issues. There's all sorts of things. It's not just general manager issues, or not just management issues, but all aspects of coaching. They could probably use a better pitching coach. They could probably use better base coaches, guys who can show guys how to hit. Basically, everything a team could really need, I think they're in the position of needing at this point. And, I think that they're going to have a hard time rebuilding in a single season. I don't see it happening.
I think, unfortunately, both teams in my state are going to be in a pretty rough spot. Obviously, with the Marlins, I know that you haven't been a fan of their choices that they've made in personnel, which we'll get to here in a couple of weeks. But also with the untimely passing of Jose Fernandez, sets them back a lot. Not to make it a one thing, but I mean, it does. It sucks, man.
Yeah, I agree. I think Florida's probably in trouble baseball-wise. Not as much trouble as they're in football-wise.
Yeah, but Chris Archer's right, though. Chris Archer makes a good point. Is they need to spend more money, and they're not. I mean, they're going to be one of the lower, one of the lower teams when it comes to, when it comes to payroll. They have, like we said, they have some players who are good, but when it's coming down to it, man, I mean, it's just, it's not enough to get them over the hump. And I don't see a ton of guys. If you want to get a good closer, go out and get Mark Melancon. I think Melancon has a couple other spots where he might fit better. Areas like we've seen that maybe in Baltimore or some other areas where it would be good. This will sound crazy, but a guy that's already in Florida and a guy who just left New York who had a pretty good season. Take a look at Andrew Kashner. Potentially, we know that he has the ability to really sling the ball, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Depends, from between his time in San Diego and now in Miami. But Bartolo Colon also, is a free agent, and I don't see, it's one of those things where, maybe they end up. Maybe they end up, grabbing him. I know it seems like kind of a goofy idea, but it could. I mean, he's proven to kind of be the ageless wonder in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The question is, though, I mean, how much money are they really going to have to go after guys like that? How much are the owners going to be willing to open up the purse strings when the team has trouble selling out? And I realize, I get it. You don't win games, you don't sell out games. And you need to start winning games before you start selling out games. But you got to spend the money.
Yeah, and to be fair, ESPN ranked them at number 28 out of every team at a $71.7 million payroll last year. So I mean, one of the lowest payrolls, in the league. Funny thing is, the number. Guess who the number 23, or sorry, the number 26 team was at $83.7 million.
I don't know.
The American League champion Cleveland Indians. So a lot of times, we've seen how a lot of times it can come down to exactly what you do and can you draft them and get them at a low cost.
But at the same time,
even the Cubbies were 12, that's $116 million.
At the same time, when you have a team like the A's, who I assume were 29th or 30th on that list,
23rd. Actually, 29th was the Astros, and 30th was the Diamondbacks. So,
so
your
really?
hometown team was at $56.2 million, rounding out the bottom.
Yeah, and if you're gonna try to field the winning baseball team at $56.2 million total payroll, then maybe you should try to field a winning cricket team, because Major League Baseball teams aren't going to win at $56.2 million in total payroll.
No, I mean Longoria was the highest at 11.5. Chris Archer was number 6, and he was making $1.16 million. So yeah, definitely
and they owe
a lot of room.
They owe Evan Longoria a debt of gratitude, because Evan Longoria is one of those guys, based on just his solo numbers, that could go out and get $100 million, $200 million contracts and doesn't.
Exactly. And he has a tie to that city. So, but I mean, that's kind of the beauty of baseball. So, guys, so that's going to be our first two teams. So top and bottom, first and worst in the AL East with the Red Sox and the Rays. Next week we'll jump with the last three with the Orioles, the Blue Jays, and the Yankees. Again, we are very excited. Something that, like I said, Chris brought up and we've been talking about on all of our social media stuff. You can find us Out of Left Field, hosted by Chris and Graham on Facebook, at OOLeftField on Twitter, and obviously you can email us ooleftfield@gmail.com. Our second installment of Women in Baseball is going to be a player with the Sonoma Stompers, independent league team in California, named Stacy Piagno. She has graciously agreed to join us, and she will be coming on here in just a moment. So hang tight with us just a second, guys. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Stacy Piagno here on Out of Left Field. Hey, guys. Graham and Chris here from Out of Left Field. The baseball season may be over. The college football and the NFL are just reaching midfield.
At thegruelingtruth.net, you can read Jaron Anderson's NCAA rankings or listen to Matt Andruskavage, Os Davis, and Aaron Zepnick as they get you ready for fantasy football draft on Fantasy Football Weekly.
Plus boxing coverage, interviews with NFL legends, and the Canadian Football League. All that and more at thegruelingtruth.net, The Grueling Truth on Facebook, and at Grueling Truth on Twitter. Thegruelingtruth.net, where legends speak. Hey, guys, thanks for sticking with us. We are back here on Out of Left Field after a quick break, and very pleased and honored to have Stacy Piagno joining us, a pitcher for the Sonoma Stompers. I know I said outfielder. I was wrong. I got my players and positions mixed up. Doesn't happen often, but it happens every now and again. So, Stacy, without any further ado, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you jumping on with us and taking out some time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So, like we said kind of before we came on, we're probably going to ask you some of the same questions that you've been asked by every single reporter since you started playing. So, to save time, why don't you kind of just take us through what got you into baseball and kind of led you through high school into playing on the United States baseball women's national team?
All right. Well, I started playing baseball when I was about 5 years old. My dad signed me up for Little League and all that. And the older I got, the more I just started falling in love with the game, and it just really became something that I loved to do. I continued playing, usually during Little League, there's a couple girls who play it, and they slowly kind of start to drop out and play softball or just decide to do something else. So, but I stuck with it. I started pitching when I was young. I'm not sure what age people start pitching at, but and that's really what I fell in love with was being a pitcher. And as I got older, the year before high school, I played on a travel ball team. And in my town in St. Augustine, it's kind of like the travel team that all the guys play on before they go into high school. So I was lucky enough to be able to play there. And then it was actually funny. I was planning on playing softball in high school. And that was just because I figured, well, they're not going to let me play in high school and this and that. So I didn't even really ask the coach or the school. I just decided that, well, I was going to have to play. So funny enough, I met my travel ball coach that I had just previously played on at the high school orientation. And he was there, and he's like, hey, Stace, are you getting ready for baseball? And I said, well, no, I'm going to, go play softball. And he said, what? And he's like, why? And I said, well, I don't think they're going to let me play. And so he says, no. says, "Come up with me." So he takes me out to the baseball coach's classroom because he was also a teacher at the time. And he introduced me to the baseball coach, and he's like, you got to let this girl try out. She's awesome. And so from there, the rest is kind of history. I was lucky enough to be able to try out for my high school team. I then made it, and I played all 4 years. And then after high school, I did go play softball in college. However, in the summer is when I got hooked up with the USA team. So I tried out for that, I believe. Actually, I tried out my junior year in high school. It was 2007. And I didn't end up making it that year, but I came back and I played in my first World Cup in 2012. And then since then I've played in the 2012, 2014, and 2016 World Cup because we have them every 2 years. And then in 2015, we got a chance to play in the Pan Am Games, the Panama America Games, and that is where we won our gold medal. So that's kind of slowly my history. And then, of course, with Sonoma, the Sonoma Stompers, I was actually, it was this past year, we had a tryout for USA again, and, you have to go and try out every year. So I was there trying out, and they had some guys coming to scout for Sonoma. And I was luckily enough to be, spoken to and chosen, and they came up and asked me if I would be interested in playing, and of course I was, thrilled and excited and said yes, of course. So that's kind of how I got scouted for that and asked to join the Stompers.
So coming up through high school playing baseball, and then once you got onto the women's national team, did you pitch primarily, or did you play another position also?
Yeah, I pretty much, the older I got, the more of a pitcher I became. Through high school, I would say my freshman and sophomore year I played on JV, and while I was on JV, I kind of switched in between infield, usually second base and third base, and then I was also a pitcher. As I was a junior, senior, I primarily became a pitcher. And then actually on USA ball, I kind of have some secondary positions, usually third base and right field. But again, primarily a pitcher. Pitching is like my first position. So. Okay.
So I obviously, from what I read, your fastball is, you're hitting 80 plus, which is, that's bringing it. Especially you get up into a lot of colleges. A lot of guys are averaging mid upper 80s. Some start touching 90. But aside from a fastball, what else are you throwing, and what's your favorite pitch to throw? What do you find gets you the most positive outcome, if you will?
Yeah, my go-to pitch after fastball is my knuckle curve. That's kind of what I've thrown ever since I was little. My dad taught me that growing up because when I throw it, I have my grip. I've got two knuckles down like a knuckleball, and then two fingers out with my thumb. And I pretty much just throw it like a fastball. I kind of let the seams, I put on the seams and let them do the work. So my dad taught me that when I was younger because it never affected my arm. I never had any problems throwing curveballs, too early on and stuff like that. So that's my go-to. That's what I've been throwing ever since I was younger. And then I've also developed more of a slider that I also throw, and that's more of like a lateral cut versus my knuckle curve, which is more of a 12-6 drop. So those are my two go-tos. When I pitch with the girls, I would say more of a power pitcher. I throw more fastballs. However, of course, I still have to mix in my other pitches as well. But when I'm with the guys, I become more of an off-speed pitcher. So I'll throw that knuckle curve and the slider a lot. And up until now, I haven't really had a good changeup, and that's something that I've been working on because with the guys, it's very important for me to have a good changeup. And then again, just, growing up with the girls, because I have been more of a power pitcher, I've been able to kind of get away with not really throwing that changeup so much, so I kind of lost it. But I am working on that now and kind of developing that back up.
It's interesting that you say that knuckle curve is your favorite pitch. We've discussed on the show several times that some of the most effective pitchers in baseball are the guys who can throw that knuckle curve. It's not a pitch you see very often, and it's really coming from a hitter's perspective. I played varsity baseball all 4 years of high school. I was going to play college ball. Some things happened in my life I didn't play, but I did play some community college ball. And coming from a hitter's perspective, knuckle curves are hard to see because, like you said, you throw yours like a fastball. A lot of guys do. So you don't expect a Big 12-6 break
right.
when you see the arm coming around. So it's hard to time them. They're hard to see. So I think that that's probably a great pitch. And it's interesting that you say that's your favorite pitch because I think it's probably one of my favorite pitches to watch a pitcher really, really master. But so one thing that we've talked about on the show quite a bit is rule changes. It's been one of our sort of go-to topics throughout the 7 or 8 months that we've been on. And over that period of time, Graham and I have both kind of come to a consensus that pitching in cold weather and pitching in mist, light mist, rain, that sort of thing gets a little difficult, right? It's hard to grip the ball. It's hard to have any control. So we've both decided that maybe baseball as a whole, and especially Major League Baseball, needs to look at possibly changing the rules to allow some sort of foreign substance for pitchers besides just the rosin bag that gives them a little extra grip. Nothing that would give them any slip, but you see guys all the time with pine tar, trying to get away with pine tar, stuff like that. What do you think about possibly introducing some sort of controllable substance that pitchers could use to get a better grip on the ball?
I've never actually really thought about it, but I guess maybe in certain situations, especially like the whole rain thing. I mean, it's always inconvenient to be the one who has to throw when it's raining and misting and stuff. Cold weather, I really haven't played in too much, knock on wood, down here in Florida. Right. I don't have a big idea about that. But, I mean, I think that it might be something to think about, especially when it gets kind of nasty out. I'm not sure, really. Might be a good idea.
So what was – I'm curious. I umpire, okay? So my take on things comes from a lot different perspective. I tend to see –
Try not to hold that against them too much.
I tend to see the ball –
As long as you give me the calls, then it's all good. If you ever
there you go. Working behind the plate, you begin to have a bit of an understanding, of what's coming situationally. You can start to see mechanics a bit more. But I'm curious, the relationship between an umpire and a catcher is one of the most important in baseball because they're protecting you, but you're also communicating. Have you found that between your time playing with Sonoma and your time with the women's national team, not is a male or a female catcher better, but do they handle you differently when they come out to talk to you or to figure out game plans? And what do you look for in a catcher when you guys work together to set up a game plan, or if you're struggling and they come out there to talk to you?
Yeah. I don't know if it necessarily matters gender so much. I think just it depends on the person and their personality. We've had a great catcher from USA, and the one who actually caught me in the Pan Am games and everything, I've known her for, probably at least 10 years. So, that is good because, we've been friends for a while and she kind of knows me and what pitches I like to throw when. And then out at Sonoma, we had Mason, and he was a great catcher as well. He was really like a good pump-up catcher. He pumped me up. He was always positive. And I think that those are qualities that at least I like to have in my catcher. You don't ever want someone to be like, come on, throw this or throw that, or you don't ever want them to show any frustration. It's always nice when they're always positive and, they're able to calm you down. And once you do make friends with that catcher and they kind of know you and they know your style, one, they know what you like to throw when, so that always is helpful. You guys are kind of on the same page. And two, just, having your personalities jibe and stuff, it makes you feel comfortable up there. So those are some qualities that I look for. And I've been pretty lucky with catchers so far. We've kind of been on the same page all the time, and I've become friends with both guys and girl catchers. So I've been pretty lucky with that.
So what have you noticed between the women's national team playing in that league, playing in the Pan Am Games, and playing with the Stompers? What are the biggest changes? What are the biggest differences between the two?
I would say probably the level of play. When you go out to play with the guys, everything happens a little bit faster. And even, just because, now we're playing professional ball, we're playing independent ball, whether it was guys or girls, it's like the next level up. So, I've definitely learned a lot by playing with the guys. I think about things that I didn't always think about before, and I'm learning more about my mechanics. Actually, a lot of the guys were not only great friends and teammates, but some of them, kind of became coaches a little bit. So I was kind of able to see the game at just that next level up. With that said, the competition is great, and with both guys and girls, it just becomes a little bit different as far as, strength and speed. There is a difference there. And then as far as the personalities, honestly, everyone's pretty similar. You think, because you've got a dugout full of girls versus a dugout full of guys, they're going to act different. But to be honest, we all kind of grew up, all us girls, most of us grew up with guys, or even if we didn't, the personalities are very similar. We kind of joke about the same stuff. There's time to get serious and time to joke, but we definitely like to have a good time in there. So that part's not really too far off.
Now, I think one of the things, the story in itself is awesome that, you developed separate, pitches that you don't see a lot of, and you have the talent to go ahead and play for an independent league team as well as a gold medal winning team. But then you also had a girl who was, I think, 5 or 6 years your junior playing with you as well, in Kelsey Whitmore.
Yeah.
So what was that like, though? Because you guys are kind of going into this whole new experience together, were you still kind of taking her under your wing because you were older, or was it both kind of this, okay, we're here, we're supporting each other, but you kind of are, she kind of did her thing and you did your thing. What was the dynamic like between you two?
Well, luckily me and Kelsey, we've known each other from the USA team, so we were already pretty close. And it was honestly a great experience. Like, we've become closer through this. And to answer your question, it was a little bit of both. I definitely did take her under my wing a lot because, I am a lot older than her. And there's things that, I want to help her out with. And we kind of became we had like a sister vibe. Like, I feel like I was almost her older sister in a way. So while I did take her under my wing and, while I did want to help her out or help her relax in certain situations or, help her teach her different things in certain situations, it was also somewhat new to us. We both played baseball in high school together. Kelsey was just kind of finishing up high school. For me, it's, many years ago I was in high school. But so we're both used to playing with guys, but of course now the guys are a little bit older. They're definitely stronger, bigger, things like that. So, going into the whole situation, that part was new for us, and that was something that we kind of got to go through together while also supporting each other, and we really just became even closer as friends and teammates and all of that. So it was really a great experience for both of us.
Awesome. So has there been any talk about you guys coming back to the Stompers?
Yeah, I think as far as now, we're both planning on it. I know there's a lot of details that we have to get figured out, but as far as we left it, I do think that, yes, we will both be going back. So I think when it gets a little bit closer, we'll kind of figure out more details and how it'll all work. But, yeah, I'm definitely hoping to return.
Okay.
And as the umpire here, I'm just curious, and you may laugh, any reason you've ever been ejected? Have you ever been tossed from a game?
I have not been tossed from a game, no. I've had teammates been tossed, but not me, no.
Chris, you could learn
something. I feel like I'm the only player that we ever talked to that can't say that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So like we said, we don't want to take up too much of your night. We know you just got done working, and so I really only have 2 questions for you to finish it out. I'm going to ask them both at the same time.
Okay.
First, I want to know what is your take on the receptiveness of baseball in general, especially coming to the Stompers, but baseball in general of women playing ball. And then I want to give you as much time as you want to take to talk to girls who love baseball and tell them what, your experience and tell them, whatever they need to do, they can do.
Okay, awesome. So for the first question, just ask it one more time. Are you asking like how Sonoma was, like how they reacted, or are you just saying like in general, like what I think about how women are treated, or?
Especially Sonoma, but I'd like to know your overall thoughts on how women are treated as far as playing baseball.
Okay. So with Sonoma, it was actually like the best case scenario in every category. I couldn't have asked for a better team. All the guys were very, very supportive. Like I said, they really wanted to help both me and Kelsey out. Some of them we've become really good friends with and we still keep in touch with. So we were very lucky in that case. As far as baseball as a whole, I mean, I definitely think, the idea of girls playing baseball, it's kind of like a new upcoming thing, and I think it's going to take a lot of time to probably fully be accepted. I know that there's a lot of people out there who are very, very supportive, whether they're major leaguers, minor leaguers, little leaguers, dads. But, with the people who are supportive, you're also, you're always going to have those people who are not supportive of that. And I think for women, a lot of the girls who I've talked to, and then myself as well, I think really what would be ideal is for eventually in time us to have our own league. You've got the WNBA. I think it would be great for women to have their own league to play baseball. I know it's going to take a long time. It may or may not be in my lifetime, but I think that the biggest thing is going to be, and I'll kind of lead into your next question, but I think that the biggest thing is just letting girls know that, yes, you can continue to play baseball. As of now, the biggest level for women's baseball is the national team, Team USA. However, I think the more girls we get playing, we'll kind of get a bigger pool to choose from, and then hopefully one day we can start making a league and teams to play against. I know with the USA team, every year we've got tryouts, and you always have to retry out and keep in it and all of that. And each year that we've held tryouts, we have more and more girls coming. And I think it's because more and more girls are hearing about it, because a lot of people right now don't even know about the team. I'll talk to some people, and the first thing they say is either one, oh, do you mean softball, not baseball? Or two, oh, I didn't even know that, they had a women's, baseball team. So I think the biggest thing is just going to be publicity and letting girls know that, one, there is a place for you to play. It's more kind of at the Olympic level. But with that said, I know it's not always easy for girls to play. Like I said, I got lucky being able to play in high school. I know some girls have had more opportunities than others, and that's kind of the hard part. Because, as a society, we have this sport of softball who people associate as the same thing. And, I played softball in college. It's fun, and, I love to play that as well, but it's just a different sport. I always like to compare it to tennis and racquetball. You're using paddles and you're hitting a ball, but it's completely different. Right. Or ping pong and tennis, so many things are different. The pitching, the rules, the size, the ball. So I think that until those sports are associated as separate, and then girls are able to play baseball growing up, I think once that happens, then we'll get more girls to play, therefore getting a bigger pool of girls to choose from, and, that's kind of how it's all going to start. So awesome. I think that it'll be time, but that's what I would hope would happen eventually, is for us to have, our own league. I think that would be ideal. And then with that said, as far as girls who long answer. As far as girls,
I love it.
Who are looking to play or who are having trouble, my best advice would just be, if it's something that you love to do, then you just have to keep working hard. As girls, a lot of times, because of the way that, we grow and our bodies are different than guys, there is a reality to that. We just have to keep working hard. We might have to work 2 times, 3 times, 5 times as hard as the guys just to be even. And that's okay. But, if it's something that you love to do, I would say just don't give up and just try your best to play as much as you can. And, just really make it a lifestyle. It has to kind of become a lifestyle if you want to be successful in it, especially now because, girls do have to fight a little bit harder to play baseball. So you really just got to, just put in the work and make sure that you're having fun when you do that as well. Because, look, when baseball doesn't become fun anymore, then what's the point of doing it, So just have fun, put in the work, and just don't give up. I know that sounds very cliche, don't give up. But it's true, you have to fight for it a little bit and just do your best, and that's all that you can do with it. Just have fun doing it. So.
Right.
And Stacy, one more question before we let you go, and this is kind of my curiosity. I have a niece who's going to be, I think she's going to be 10 coming up here in just a couple of weeks. But what is it like? I mean, you're about 25, if I remember correctly, from what I've seen. What's it like at 25 years old? Yeah, and I'm sure your first game with Sonoma was like, but kind of being looked up to as this huge role model that I'm sure that in high school you weren't expecting your life to kind of go that route, where all of a sudden so many young girls are looking up to you, and hopefully young men too are looking up to you and seeing that women can do the same thing that guys can do, and all of a sudden you're kind of thrust into this this spotlight and this idea that nothing you were prepared for, but you probably didn't expect at the time.
Yeah, definitely. It was funny, even before me and Kels both were going to Sonoma, we had no idea that it would even be like a thing or it would even be big. But it's a pretty cool feeling, to have people look up to me. And, I remember when I was younger, I didn't really necessarily have another girl figure to look up to. So I really, and I know that me and Kelsey both feel the same on this, we really enjoy the fact that girls do look up to us. And, I hope that we can help them, or, we can be someone that they can look up to, and they can know, anything's possible if you try and if you just put your heart into it. So it's a really good feeling that, we're a role model, and you're right, I didn't expect any of it, but kind of comes with the territory. So I think it's really cool, and I'm glad that, younger girls can have someone to look up to. So.
Well, Stacy, we want to thank you just so much for taking some time with us, for agreeing to come on. It really was an honor to talk to you, and I know I want to wish you best of luck going into next season, and hopefully maybe we end up running into each other doing some kind of stuff before the season starts down here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And just on a more personal note, on behalf of myself, obviously the show, myself, and my 6-year-old who's getting ready to sign up for her first baseball season, I want to thank you for coming on. And obviously the Grueling Truth Network, who hosts our podcast, is behind us 100%. They obviously really appreciate you coming on also. Thank you for that. Guys, this is the end of another great show from Out of Left Field. And as always, if you want to get a hold of us, we're on Facebook at Out of Left Field, at OO Left Field on Twitter, or you can email us at ooleftfield@gmail.com. You can also follow Stacy at Stacy Piagno on Twitter. Go follow her and see what she's doing, making waves in the sport, guys. It's really great. See you next time.
Thank you.